Shark Tank is one of the most popular reality TV shows of all time. The premise is pretty simple. People from across the nation bring their business ideas into the tank in hopes that they'll get an offer from the sharks, aka prominent business figures and entrepreneurs, along with a couple of celebrity guests. Over the course of its 14-season run, businesses have been created while others have fallen to the wayside without an offer. But the one thing that has remained the same are the sharks themselves and the different personalities they bring to the table. Today, I'll be ranking the sharks along with a few other guests on the show from worst to best. Now, just a disclaimer, I know that this list is missing quite a few guests, but for time's sake we'll be covering a handful of prominent reoccurring guests. I will be ranking them off of two criteria. One, how they conduct themselves on the show, as well as their knowledge and how they are as sharks. This will be the main criteria. And as a secondary criteria, obviously I will be ranking them on how much I personally like them or not. So without further delay, let's get started. Alright, so first off, we have Lori Greiner, an OG of the show. She's been around since the very beginning and is also known as the Queen of QVC. She's created over 600 products and has a lot of connections with a lot of main brand stores and stuff like that. As far as how she handles herself and conducts herself throughout the 15 seasons, or about to be 15 seasons of the show, I do believe that Lori is kind of like the type to sort of wait her turn. She's not really the type to talk over other sharks, and because of that, she typically gets sort of talked over a lot. That doesn't really stop her from, securing deals or making offers, but I've noticed that a lot of the time she kind of does get talked over, but that's just the nature of the show. Now, I think that she is very knowledgeable in her field. Just one of the things that does kind of bother me about her is she's constantly riding the coattails of QVC. She mentions it quite a bit throughout every single episode. You'll probably hear her mention that QVC this, QVC that. Now, listen, I get it. Okay, you're playing to your strengths and everything, but you can't always ride the coattails of QVC at all times. That can't be the answer to everything. So, that's one of the things that I kind of noticed. But again, you got to play to your strengths. I totally get it. In order to secure the deal, you're going to want to mention everything you have, and obviously QVC is probably one of the biggest things you could. It's definitely a very alluring positive to have. So, but other than that, I do like Lori, but overall, I think Lori's good. I think she belongs somewhere in the B tier. I think B's fair. B+, I think that's good. Next up, we have a guest shark by the name of Bethenny Frankel. She is the creator and founder of Skinny Girl Cocktail, and she's also written 4 motivational kind of self-help books throughout her career, stuff like that. She's recurred in a couple of episodes of Shark Tank throughout the last couple of years. Now, I'm just going to go out and say it. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm not a huge fan. I don't really like Bethenny Frankel. I do believe that she tries really hard to keep up with a lot of the other sharks when it's very clear that she isn't in the same caliber, nor is she even in the same ballpark, I'd say, as the other sharks. And of course, you can't always be expected to be at their same caliber, but she really just eggs it on, has this kind of persona, like, yeah, she knows exactly what she's talking about, and in order to sort of appear more dominant or appear more knowledgeable than she really is, I do feel like she really eggs it on. It shouldn't take you too long to kind of know what I'm talking about if you do see her on the show. I might be kind of looking too much into it, but honestly, that's the vibe I get. And she doesn't particularly seem like the easiest to work with. I would definitely wouldn't be my first choice if she was one of the sharks and I had my product. Probably wouldn't be my first, second, third choice. Nothing against her personally, just definitely not my wavelength. So because of that, I'm going to be putting Bethenny Frankel at the D tier. I know it's harsh, but that's how I feel about it, alright? Next up, we have Alex Rodriguez. Of course, as we all know him from his baseball career, his dominant baseball career. He's invested in a bunch of different companies. He's, done charity and all that stuff. I think he's all right. I don't think he's all that crazy. I do feel that it's the same kind of thing with the QVC thing with Lori. He rides the coattails of the sport thing. I get it. I almost can't criticize it. I almost can't. I get it. Why wouldn't you use that? So, okay, by all means, that's a good argument. But sometimes they get on too hard. I just feel like they do. They can shed light on other stuff that they do instead of just that. I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff that can be used, But I don't know, something about him just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I haven't heard great things about him on and off the field. Haven't heard great things, and due to his past records and all that, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of him, to be honest. But I think he's all right on Shark Tank. As an investor, as somebody who's kind of going to be giving out offers and sort of working with entrepreneurs, not the worst I've seen, but I can't put him too high because of just personal sort of dislike of him in a way. So, and it has nothing to do with baseball. I'm not like, oh, because he beat my team. Nothing like that. Just not my cup of tea. So I'm going to be putting him at the C tier. I think that's fair. Next up, we have another OG of the Shark Tank series, Robert Herjavec. He is an owner of a big IT security firm, along with other platforms. He's been around for a while, been investing a lot. He's extremely well spoken and very focused in on asking the right questions. He is definitely one of the more goofier sharks. He's always kind of almost like a child when it comes to some of the creations or some of the products that do come in. He gets all giddy about it. It's kind of weird. I don't know. But he's very, he has a good head on his shoulders. I do feel like he asks the right questions, and you could tell he's one of the most knowledgeable sharks when it comes to making deals or how he structures things or how he looks at the industries that the products are in and offers insight. Of the OG cast, he is one of the top people, but he could also be a little annoying at times. I do feel like he kind of, I don't know, something about him getting really loud and like he gets rowdy, and it's kind of like it's a little cringy at times. But honestly, I do feel like Robert is very good at his field. So from a likability standpoint, I don't mind him. He's all right. From a professional and shark standpoint, I think he's really good. Offers a lot of insight and is ultimately very fair with a lot of the offers that he makes. So because of that, I'm going to be putting Robert at the B plus tier, bordering on an A. So somewhere in between there. Next, we have Rohan Oza. He's referred to apparently as the brand father. I don't know who gave him that name, I'm not sure, but he's apparently the brand father, so now you know. Is he going to be making you an offer you can't refuse? Probably not. He's also the owner, or at one point was owner of the parent company of Smartwater, and he definitely rides the coattails of that a lot. He's worked with a lot of brands and he has a lot of experience in it, so I get why, they want to kind of, at least him wants to push the brand father look. Now, as far as creating brands and stuff like that, I get it. He's very good at that. But there's a lot more to a company, obviously, than just the branding and the marketing aspect of it. So, because of that, it's a little swayed, in my opinion. And again, the fact that he has worked with, and he's worked with Coca-Cola and stuff like that, I believe. The fact that he's worked with all that, and it barely gets mentioned, it's always about smart water or vitamin water or whatever. He comes across as way more arrogant than he should when it comes to that stuff. So for me personally, from a person kind of level, he's all right. I do feel like he's a little cockier than he should be with the stuff that he's achieved. Don't get me wrong, it's very, very successful career, extremely impressive and everything. Not taking anything away from him, but for me, just a little too arrogant for what we're looking at in comparison to other sharks and stuff like that. So for me, I don't know. I put Rohan at the C tier, C plus. He's definitely he's better than Alex Rodriguez, but he's a C for me. Next up, we have Jamie Siminoff. I do really like this guy's storyline in relation to the show. So he came on the show for his product Ring. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a doorbell product that kind of has a camera in it. It's very well known now. A lot of people in my apartment complex and everywhere I go have these. So it's definitely blown up as a massive company now. But he came on the show a while ago. It was years ago. And they didn't take it. All the sharks said no. They all passed. They were all out, right? This was a great storyline because he actually came way after. And now after he succeeded with the company, and I believe he got investments from other guest sharks as well, he actually came back as a shark. So it's a great storyline in that they all said no to him, and then fast forward like 5 years or however long it was, years later, he's back on the show as one of them, as a shark. It's a great story. I think everybody can relate to that. He is, I mean, he's not the most like exciting guy to listen to, but I do feel that because he's been in the front lines and because of the fact that he was part of that, he was on the show before, and he was able to kind of rise from that and make it into a massive company when they all said no and then come back and kind of sit in one of the chairs. It's a great storyline. And I do feel that also gives him an edge. More of a recent edge as well, because a lot of the Sharks, obviously they've been doing this for a while, but this is kind of like a newer thing, you know? And they are more of like I guess you would call it more like, they were entrepreneurs and they're in charge of companies and stuff like that, but they're not at that stage anymore where they're growing a company. They're helping other people grow the companies and they're in charge of stuff, but they're not from the ground zero anymore. So to have somebody that was recently in that come in and offer insight, it's pretty good. It was really cool. But like I said, he's not the most exciting person to listen to, I guess you would say, from a likability standpoint. I definitely admire the story. But all in all, I would put Jamie at the B tier, B minus, B or B minus. I think that's a good place to put him. Next, we have another big OG, Barbara Corcoran. She's a real estate multi-billionaire, and for that reason, I'm out. She's also basically the creator of that meme. She's always out, and she tells it like it is. But I gotta tell you, she's a viper. She is one of the strongest sharks there is when it comes to just totally standing her ground or being no pity for the weak. She's just work. And I've seen interviews and stuff like that around with her. And I must say, I've come to respect her. At first, I was like, okay, yeah, Barbara's a bit of an a-hole, but she grew on me. She grew on me. I feel like she has a lot to offer. I do feel like behind her super rigid and stern demeanor and the fact that she comes across as mean to some people, would probably use that word, mean or whatever. I do feel like she is extremely knowledgeable in a lot of fields, and I do feel like she brings this sort of the mentality that it's you don't give up and you keep on pushing, and nothing should hold you back. And she has no, there's people on the show where they cry and she says stop crying, it's weakness, and you could tell she's been through it. I don't know, with that, and also the fact that she's all right. I actually do like Barbara. I do feel like I would definitely consider, if all the Sharks gave me an offer, I would consider going with her, depending on what my product was, obviously. But I wouldn't be against it. I do feel she wouldn't be my first choice, but she'd definitely be maybe my second choice, third possibly. So I think Barb has grown on me. I do like Barb. I'm going to be putting her at the A tier. Next we have Matt Higgens, the vice chairman of the Miami Dolphins, executive VP of the Jets, and stuff of that nature. Just a lot of sports related background things. He's all right. I do feel like, wasn't the most exciting guest host. Not super memorable. Or guest shark, I'm sorry. Not super memorable. I do feel like there's a lot of better sharks. He's very, and again, it's very sports oriented a lot. Everything's kind of sports oriented with him, but I mean, he was alright. There's not really much to say about him. There wasn't anything super that stood out to me from a personal level or from a shark level. Obviously, very knowledgeable guy on that stuff. Was great when it came to more of the sports-related products that have come over throughout the years of Shark Tank, but nothing over the top or crazy to speak about this guy. So, with that in mind, I'm just going to be putting him at the B, just straight B minus. I think that's fair. All right, next up we have Mark Cuban, perhaps the most infamous and most popular of all the Sharks, and perhaps one of the most successful. He owns a bunch of massive companies. He's the owner of the Mavericks, and his resume is long, and he just owns tons of things. He's a multi-billionaire. Been around for a long time. He's been a hustler, and because he's invested in so many companies throughout the years, his knowledge really shows in the show so well. Him more than any other shark, I'd say. always asks the right questions. He's very persuasive. He's super knowledgeable in a lot of different industries and topics. He will literally analyze or basically audit the product or the company right in front of them, like real time. He'll kind of break down what's wrong with it, what's not. And of course, other sharks do that, but he's quick with it. I don't know. And the way he structures his deals, he's so forward thinking and so smart on his feet. When it comes to that, there's a reason why a lot of the time his products or the entrepreneurs kind of choose him over a lot of the other sharks, because he's extremely good at being a businessman and he understands audience and target audience and everything like that. And throughout the show, I'm always just impressed by how smart he is when it comes to that. Just a total stellar businessman. He can be a bit arrogant and a bit stubborn. As a person, I do feel that he can come across as a little petty at times. He's all right. Like, I do like him most of the time, but there's been plenty of times where I don't want to use the word moody, but that's kind of the best way to describe it. Been a bit petty, very arrogant, and a bit cocky, and sometimes in fields that really he's not the most versed in, but I've seen him be pretty cocky. And again, I said that he has a lot of knowledge in a lot of industries, but come on, he's not going to be perfect all the time. So I do feel like he can be a little arrogant. But other than that, I do think that Mark Cuban's probably the best shark when it comes to actually being a shark. I think he's an absolute legend at it. So, of course, I'm going to be putting him up at the S tier. Next, we have Daymond John. He's another OG. He's been pretty much on there since the very beginning. He is the founder and creator of FUBU, an apparel company, and that's something that he definitely shows off a lot of the time. I do feel like that's kind of the thing that he's really known for. He has a lot of connections and a lot of sponsorships and a lot of brands behind his side. So a lot of the time he's able to sort of use that to his advantage. He definitely takes a lot of products and kind of licensing. That's what it's called. He's able to license it out. So that's probably one of his main things I've noticed throughout all the shows, that he's able to do that, along with the apparel stuff as well. I do feel like Daymond, again, also like Mark Cuban, comes across as a bit arrogant. I do feel like he tries really hard to be this tough guy at times, overly, to the point where he kind of comes across as a dick in a way sometimes. So, but there's other times when he's alright, or I find it funny. So it definitely depends. But I think he tries a little too hard sometimes. But ultimately, I do feel like Daymond does speak very well. He's definitely come from the bottom and has worked his way up, along with a lot of them. But that's sort of, his story really revolves around that. Nothing was handed to him. So I give him props for that, and I do feel like he's a very well-spoken, very smart businessman as well. He definitely is able to do the same thing kind of Mark and Kevin and Lori and all of them are able to do as well, which is sort of diagnose what's working, what's not for a company right off the bat, just on the spot. So, but because of sort of the way he can be sometimes, I'm going to be putting him up at the B+ tier. Alright, next up we have Kevin O'Leary, also known as Mr. Wonderful. He's just a massive investor. His bio and all that, it is kind of all over the place. I don't know exactly what to sort of highlight, but all I know is that he's been a big investor in a lot of things. And Mr. Wonderful, let me tell you, if he wasn't an investor, if he wasn't a businessman or entrepreneur, Kevin could easily go into comedy. Hands down, by far, the funniest shark on the show. I know a lot of people hate him. I know he can be a total a-hole at times. But to me, he makes the show so much more entertaining because he just speaks his mind no matter how mean it comes across. He can totally just obliterate a product or a company right there in front of them. Women, children, nobody's safe. He's always been just completely straightforward to a comedic level. He's sort of like the old Simon Cowell, or one of these hosts were just one of these judges kind of, where they just say what it is, doesn't matter even if it sounds mean. That's Kevin O'Leary, and he is very witty as well. You gotta, if you watch him throughout these last couple of seasons, or since the very beginning. He's an OG. I'm telling you, he's one of the wittiest of all the sharks. Quick with it. And I'm telling you, funny too. So, I don't know. I find it so entertaining. And of course, extremely good businessman. Extremely smart. Knows all his stuff. The way he's able to sort of construct these deals on the spot that makes sense, and using royalties and using equity and all that stuff. The way he creates these deals. He is a man of money, and you could tell. And he's had so much success because of it. So, as a shark, he's extremely good. As a person, obviously, you know, he can be a bit of a douche at times. But, I don't know. He makes the show so much more entertaining. And for that reason, I gotta put him at the S tier. Wrapping up with these last four, we have Sara Blakely, the creator of Spanx, on the show a few times. She's been on there a few times. She's okay. I think she's a little preachy at times, to be honest. A bit preachy. A little over the top preachiness, to be honest. But I gotta commend her story. Obviously, like all the other sharks, she's kind of had to work her way up to this point. And obviously her brand is very big and everything, and it's been for a while now. So I gotta give her credit where credit's due. She does definitely know her stuff as far as clothing and stuff is concerned whenever she's on the show. She definitely holds her own in that field. But ultimately, I do feel like she can come across as trying a little too hard at times. Yeah, I do feel like Sara is just, she's alright. It's nothing crazy. I think she seems nice overall as a person. And as a shark, she's okay. So, because of all that, I think somewhere in the C+ tier, I think that's a good place to put her. Next we have Chris Sacca, someone who Mark Cuban absolutely loves. This guy has been on the show a couple of times. He's worked at Google, and he's made some early investments in big companies like Uber and other companies like that have recently, or have gone to become huge multi-billion-dollar companies. So obviously this guy knows how to, I guess they're going to put the narrative that he knows how to detect what a successful company is going to look like at an early stage. So for the record, obviously Mark Cuban, along with all the other sharks, but they're not as vocal about it, don't really particularly like Chris, and to be honest, neither do I. I do think that he's definitely comes across as the Silicon Valley kind of D-bag, not really the nicest guy. You could tell he's very kind of stuck up in his own way and thinks that he's right about a lot of things. I probably wouldn't be able to have a conversation with this guy, to be honest. Now again, this isn't the Shark Tank, so he might not be like this outside of it. To tell you the truth, I haven't seen any interviews or anything from him besides Shark Tank. But I will say that, everything from the way he dresses, the way he talks, you can just tell from the demeanor. It's not very likable. From a business aspect, I do feel like he did ask the right questions when it came to certain products. He wasn't completely right about a lot of them, but he did ask the right questions, and I do feel like he obviously has somewhat of a knack for investing in things. So as a shark, it's okay. Nothing crazy. As a person, don't really like him. I'm going to be putting him down here. He's going to be joining Bethenny in the D tier. Next we have Charles Barkley. Everybody knows him from basketball, from being on ESPN and stuff like that. Great basketball player, obviously. How is he as a businessman? Now, truthfully, I felt like he did struggle on the show. I felt like he really struggled in comparison to the other sharks. They were quick and asking a bunch of questions. All the questions he would ask, it seemed very tame, very safe. The usual questions, nothing super insightful, nothing, didn't really add anything like advice-wise or his like logic on it. It was a lot of just, how much does the company make? How much does it cost? Like the very bare bones questions all of them are going to ask. Like it's all the questions after that. Those are the ones that matter. But the ones are like, yeah, every single person that comes on the show, every single company, they're going to be asked those questions. He was asking those questions, obviously. I like Charles Barkley. I do. I think he's quite the character and a great basketball player. But truthfully, as a shark, I wasn't blown away by him as a shark. I thought that he kind of, again, struggled in comparison to the other sharks. Obviously, he has some merit being on the show, but I feel like somebody like Shaq may be better at that. Obviously, Charles Barkley has definitely invested in a lot of things, so I'll give him props with that. But as much as I do like him off the show, I think that on the show didn't quite hold up as well, so I'm going to be putting Charles at the C tier. And finally, we have Richard Branson, the owner of the Virgin Group. Obviously, you know him from, flying into space or stuff like that, space travel. Very adventurous things, owner of the Virgin Cruise, obviously, and all that stuff. So again, a lot of the stuff he's in is technology, transportation, all that kind of stuff. So when it came to the show, obviously anything related to that, vehicles, construction, stuff like that, obviously he was more inclined and more engaged with that. As a person, I think what he stands for is good. I do think that he's definitely created a new look when it's come to sort of what entrepreneurs look like or how they act. I do feel he does have a level of modesty to him overall from what I've seen. Obviously, I don't know the guy, so I can't really talk, but he seems like a generally friendly guy, for being a multi-billionaire. Seems generally friendly and seems very passionate about his work. So, with that in mind, obviously those are good traits. On the show, Mark hated him for whatever reason. It was entertaining, kind of cringy at times. I don't know. On the show, he's good. I think he did good as a shark. He did good. So ultimately, I don't know if I'm not gonna put him in the A tier, but I think Charles definitely is gonna be at the B tier, just straight B, not B plus, B minus, just straight B. But here you have it. All the OG sharks ranked from worst to best, in my personal opinion, along with a couple of guest sharks kind of sprinkled in. But let me know below, are you a fan of the show? Let me know. I'd love to hear your ranking, what do you agree, what do you disagree with. And if you want to see more tier lists and more videos just like this, please be sure to hit that sub button. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one.